The Witcher 3, Ithlinne's Prophecy. En Ithlinne Spiath, the prophecy of Ithlinne Egliep Evenian. I tell you that the time of the sword and axe approaches, the time of the wolf's blizzard, the time of the white frost and white light, the time of madness and disdain, Ted Deriath, the final age. The world will perish amidst ice and be reborn with the new sun, reborn of the elder blood, of Henikir, of a planted seed, a seed that will not sprout but burst into flames. Estuath Essi, so shall it be. Watch for the signs. I will tell you what these signs will be. The earth will run with the blood of Ainshade, the blood of the elves. The Witcher 3, Dandelion's Planner. Rosa var Atra. Like a rose abashed of its crimson hue, Ter Rosa would sink into humor's blue. She shunned her lessons in civility, to swing her dwarf with agility. A charming garden-enclosed villa in Gildorf. Molly. Though well she knows the touch of silk and lace, she shuns not straw when gripped in lust's embrace. Gildorf, villa next to the morgue. Vespula. Though timid in looks, no adventure did skip her. My heart melts when she asks, ever had a Big Dipper? Far Corners, laundry near the mouth of the Pontar. Marabella. Though her cries are divine when behind closed doors, standing on stage her squawks are drowned by snores. The Bits, near Popper's Square. Elihal. A figure most rare, her nature dual. Look her deep in the eyes or be made a fool. Tailor shop across from the tannery. The Witcher 3, Journey to the End of the World. Sirens, the harpies' distant relatives, are winged monsters found in the Skellige archipelago, most frequently on unpopulated isles or in the inaccessible coastal areas of populated ones. According to legend, they are daughters of the mythical winged giant Rosvelg, who lives on the edge of the world and births gales with the waving of his wings. Rosvelg's daughters seek out the company of giants and often make their nest near their lairs. These creatures attack boats and ships from the air, tearing sails and rigging to shreds and rendering vessels immobile. At times they will snatch men or cattle from the deck and drop them from great heights to their death. They also attack travelers trekking across isolated beaches. The Witcher 3, Change Your Life, a Handbook. And so I, Jacob the Rebel, once well known as a libertine and brawler extraordinaire, from Nazaire with its myriad taverns to the wilds of Zerrikania, used what strength I had left to pull my craft ashore. The raft I had strapped together out of an old boot, bits of strap, and a burst barrel had taken on so much water that 2 ells and more I'd have sunk to the bottom. Instead, I stood on dry land, and that was all that mattered. With not a living soul in sight and my stomach growling something mighty, I began to explore. The isle was bereft of game, but offered fruit in great abundance. I ate so heartily that the juice nearly poured out my ears. Then I began to gather wood with which to build my shelter for the night and fuel the fire that would warm me. It was then that I came upon the strange plant that would change my life till the end of my days. Ignorant of its value at this time, I frivolously used it for kindling. Yet as soon as it began to smolder and its sweet scent filled my nostrils, I felt light and the coastal breeze whisked all my troubles away. I devoted the subsequent years of my life to researching this miraculous weed and its properties. As a result, I was able to develop a method that is likely to transform the life of any who puts it into practice. Here is how to begin. The Witcher 2, Captain's Log. Captain's Log of the Petra Ciliae. The expedition to Loch Muin has proven a success that will doubtlessly please both King Foltest, who so generously backed our expedition, as well as the university. Oswin seems exceptionally pleased. I've never before seen a sorcerer jumping for joy. Oswin tried to get the crew to mutiny, offering them valuables we had discovered in order to keep the artifacts for himself. Fortunately, Foltest Marines remained loyal. Passing Vergen, there was a battle in which we sunk the Dardin. We had to flee, though, continuously attacked by the harpies summoned by Oswin's spell. Oswin's spell still has the power to attract monsters, even though the sorcerer now lies at the bottom of the river. The soldiers bravely repel the monstrosities that harass us. I'm almost finished with my report for Oxenfurt, which sums up the results of our research and marks the location of the Derdin's resting place. We're almost home. The Witcher 1, A Guide to Vizima, by Marco Knopf. Like most human cities, Vizima was built on the foundations of an elven city. The seat of the Temerian kings grew over the centuries, and today consists of 3 large districts, a port, and sprawling outskirts. In the temple quarter, the visitor's attention is drawn to the monumental cloister of the Order of the Flaming Rose. St. Lebioda's hospital, famous for the many miraculous recoveries that have occurred there, is also hard to miss. While admiring these edifices, avoid wandering into the non-human district, which has become a den of poverty and the lair of social outcasts. Most non-humans have been relocated to Old Vizima, which has become a ghetto inaccessible to visitors. Currently, the trade quarter is developing rapidly. This is hardly surprising, as it is home to the wealthy merchants as well as trade and political officials. The city's leading bank and the town hall can also be found here. While in Vizima's trade quarter, be sure to visit the famous marketplace where traders offer goods from around the world. The Witcher 1, Shadow People, or the Story of His Majesty's Secret Service, by Oribasius Gianfranco Paolo Ruvin. Redania's political situation was best grasped by Sigismund Dijkstra, who could accurately foresee the future and would have assessed present events level-headedly. Dijkstra knew the kings of the north were weak and that actual power rested with the sorceresses. He assumed that a counterbalance for their magic could only be provided by a strong religious cult offering an ideology that would appeal to the masses and possessing real armed forces. The chief of Redanian intelligence supported the newly formed Order of the Flaming Rose, but disagreed with the concept of establishing its main commandery within the Redanian territory. Dijkstra is reported to have said, "It's good to have fanatics and sorcerer scarers on one's side, but it's even better when they live beyond one's borders. Fundamentalists always cause trouble, so it's best to transfer this trouble to somebody else, like the Temerians, for instance. And we need fanatics. If we need to unleash them against the sorceresses or Nilfgaard, we'll just whistle. They'll not be far, just beyond the border." Time will tell how much truth there was in these words. The Witcher 3, Ghouls and Alghouls. As for the genesis of the ghouls, there are hypotheses aplenty. Some scholars claim these monstrosities arose from scoundrels who indulged in a taste for human flesh, and for this misdeed drew the wrath of the heavens down upon themselves. The gods punished them by taking away their souls, their minds, and their human forms. My experiments have shown, however, that ghoul anatomy displays far too little in common with that of humans for this thesis to seem at all probable. Any and all similarity in appearance between ghouls and men, such as their somewhat kindred shapes and the measures of their physiognomies, are pure matters of incidental circumstance. It thus follows that ghouls, like their vile cousins the Alghouls, are post-conjunction creatures. That is to say, such beings as came to our universe in an abrupt cataclysm disrupting the normal laws of nature. The Witcher 3, Heroes of Skellige, Broddr. Broddr, founder of Clan Dimon, whose members dwell on the Isle Faro, was an extraordinarily good and fair man, giving advice and help to all who came to him. He loathed looting and deception and never told a lie. In short, he was a paragon of virtue. He ruled his people wisely and lived to a venerable age. At the dusk of his life he was summoned before Heimdall, but a whale devoured his longship and he never reached his journey's end. Ever since, descendants of his line have hunted whales in search of the bones of their great and beloved ancestor. The Witcher 2, About Dragons. Dragons were once commonplace, their rule over the continent absolute. Dragonfire was the bane of cities, and dragon appetites were a constant threat to the first colonizers. Mages stood against these creatures, witches were created to fight them. Today, dragons are nearly extinct. There are occasional sightings of forktails and slizzards, but these creatures are to dragons as stray cats are to tigers. Dragons were brought to the brink of extinction by professional hunters like the famed Crinfrid Reavers. Alchemy ingredients from the dragon's body are among the most expensive and highly sought after by mages. The beast's roasted tail is considered a true delicacy. The Witcher 2, The Bane of the Vrans. Of the existing hypotheses about the downfall of the Vrans, if one discards those that are unserious or unsupported by evidence, one is left with but a few. Among these, that which states the race was brought down by an epidemic seems very likely. It is hardly new, for Doragry proposed it in his treatise, yet he failed to investigate the matter thoroughly. My research, the results of which I present in this text, allow me to pinpoint an interesting strain of bacteria. They do not cause illness whose symptoms would resemble those of smallpox or the Black Death, yet they spread just as quickly and attack the gonads, leading to infertility. It is therefore probable that the Vrans as a race were indirect victims of the disease, while infertility was the direct cause of their extinction. It is too early to advance any bold theses on this matter, yet I consider it nearly impossible that a bacteria strain would mutate in this way naturally, without anyone's interference. The Witcher 1, Zerrikanian Insects and Other Vermin, by Marco Knopf. Zerrikania, home to the venomous basilisk, has given birth to other equally hideous creatures. Among them are spotted spiders so huge that they trap elephants in their webs, and the no less terrifying tsetse flies. The flies are especially repulsive, laying their eggs in the human body, the resulting larvae maturing within the host's head. The victim's brain serves as sustenance, and when the larvae turn into adult flies, they leave the body through the eye sockets, now void of the previously devoured eyes. These and other vermin are born in the far land of Zerrikania. Thank the gods that similar filth has not infested the northern kingdoms. The Witcher 3, Fauna of the Northern Realms, Volume 1. What a wolf is, every man knows. Who hasn't heard them howling at night or seen their tracks in the snow come morning? Who hasn't felt a cold chill run down his spine when he catches sight of a pack of 25 of them hunting in the woods? These beautiful animals are treated by men as enemies, and not without reason, for they attack our flocks and will even kill our horses during times of deep frost. Yet they are noble beasts, endowed with great intelligence and displaying a strength and independence that no man can help but admire. The Witcher 3, Fauna of the Northern Realms, Volume 2. Bears dwell in the wildernesses of the north, in its high mountain regions and in areas gripped with eternal frost. These animals can even be found where the human eye sees nothing but ice and snow, for they are skilled omnivorous hunters and gatherers, always able to find nourishment of some sort even in the most hostile conditions. Bears are best avoided. While they are not usually aggressive, it is always a good policy to stay out of the way of any massive and fast-moving animals, in particular ones with sharp claws and teeth. The Witcher 3, A Sword for Witches. Who are hunters, you ask? Folk like you and yours, I reply. The decent kind, haters of lies, doers of good. The kind who live according to the gods' laws, and nature's laws too. Those disgusted by the machinations of witches, magickas, and non-humans. All that separates us from common folk is that we've the courage to take up arms, to defend our lands from evil, to slice out the gangrene that eats us from within. We haven't a leader, we haven't force or land. Though gods-fearing Radovid supports us with gold at times, we've not sworn him nor any other ruler any oath. We serve only the eternal fire, and we listen only to our own conscience. Who can join us? Any who is right of soul and sound of body. You can find us in every larger city in the north. We will give you board, lodging, and a weapon. We will explain how to spot the telltale signs of evil, birthmarks in strange and arcane shapes, smooth skin on a matron aged more than 30 springs, and black cats kept in the yard, to name but a few. We will show you how to defend yourself from witchcraft, how to tame and snuff out magic elements with dimeritium. We will instruct you how to squeeze the sinner's darkest secrets out with a hot iron, and how to grant them cleansing death with the help of sacred fire. Diary of a Dice Collector, Anonymous. Summer 1263. A dwarven regiment of the Mahakam Volunteer Army is stationed near my estate. The officers spend their days playing dice poker. It seems an interesting game. Autumn 1263. The dwarves have marched south toward a great battle with Nilfgaard. Dear old Molnar gave me a set of dice. I think he meant to compensate me for all the games I lost. Winter 1264. My trip to Vizima was worthwhile. I won a decent sum at the inn. It's a pity the locals don't want to play me anymore. I must learn to lose a bit more often. Spring 1264. The jade dice cost me a fortune, but my collection would be incomplete without them. Every now and again I manage to convince someone to play around with me, but I feel I must move to the city again. Autumn 1264. What rotten luck. I had to sell Father's estate. As soon as I start winning again, I'll buy it back. Spring 1265. I was told a band of deserters stalks the area. I doubt the poor village or my humble abode holds anything else of value around. There's nothing of value around here. Maybe they would fancy a game of dice poker? The Witcher 3, The Conjunction of the Spheres, by Adam Neville. The cataclysm commonly known as the Conjunction of the Spheres happened 1.5 millennia ago. A cosmic collision of several parallel universes, this disaster left numerous creatures not native to our reality trapped here. For example, ghouls and graviers, which lack their own ecological niches, are simply relics of the conjunction. The elves claim that humans also arrived in this world during the conjunction. This occurred soon after they managed to destroy their own world. The elves claim that it was during the conjunction that humans learned to use magic. Of course, these are all vile lies and foul fabrications circulated by non-humans, who will resort to the most malicious slander to justify their claims. The Witcher 3, Mystery of Mysteries. Among the many creatures of our world, there are but two that are able to draw and absorb the power, and these are cats and dragons. Both species instinctively sense the presence of magic intersections and often choose them as resting places, which is strange for other animals avoid these same spots. Numerous theories attempt to explain this behavior, but none do so with thorough success. Some scholars claim dragons use the power they imbibe to fly, for as the natural philosophers have proven, no creature of their size and mass should be capable of lifting itself into the air using such meager wings. As for cats, there's a theory stating the power is behind their gift for seeing things in complete darkness. Others claim this ability is theirs by nature, and they use the power of the intersections for other unknown purposes. Indeed, that all members of the Felidae genus are able to see beings from other planes, invisible persons and emanations of the power, has been proven beyond any doubt on numerous occasions. The Witcher 3, The Merry Adventures of Muriel the Lovely Harlot, Illustrated Edition. On one occasion, Muriel went on a journey to see her auntie in Maribor, accompanied by her nursemaid. Their path took them through a forest, and in this forest lived a raucous troop of bandits. This infamous group was led by Flynn Selms, and all the king's men had been unable to bring them to justice. Alas, such was Muriel's great misfortune that these bandits chose to attack her carriage. Muriel's nursemaid was old, blind, and deaf. She did not wake when a tree fell in front of their carriage with a loud thud, nor when the bandits fought a fierce battle against their guardsmen. When Flynn ripped open the carriage door with his muscular arms and stepped inside, Muriel had to deal with the danger herself. "Make our guests comfortable, young lady," the old nursemaid muttered in her sleep. Muriel obediently carried out her instructions. The Witcher 1, Sorceresses and Sorcerers, by Marcus Marcellinus. The Brotherhood of Sorcerers ceased to exist after the revolt on Thanedd Island, when some of the mages were accused of serving Nilfgaard and were arrested or killed. All the important sorcerers were there for a meeting, due to transpire on the following day. Neutral mages also perished during the fighting. Among them was Hen Gedemdith, who remembered the beginnings of human colonization. Soon after, Tizaya de Vries committed suicide. Her death marked the end of the Brotherhood and the advent of a new order. After the revolt on Thanedd Island, some of the surviving sorceresses grew in prominence. Philippa Eilhart consolidated her position at Redania's court, while the elf Francesca Findabaya, Queen of the Valley of Flowers, expanded her involvement in human affairs. Triss Merigold, a younger sorceress representing Foltest interests, also joined in shaping the new order. The Witcher 2, of Trolls and Trolling. According to legend, trolls were born of the earth, and their body is made of rock. They fear and despise sunlight, which kills them by turning them into inanimate stone, so they only prowl at night. So much for legends. What is the reality? Well, as always, the truth is far more mundane. Trolls are living creatures like you and me, and they prefer day to night, for they are so clumsy they stumble over the stones in the dark, spilling the vodka they cherish so much. Their skin is indeed hard as stone, but beneath it there are muscles and a heart that pumps blood. Given that they bleed, they can be killed. The Witcher 2, Rites of Midaëte. Midaëte, or Midsummer, is the day of the summer solstice and marks the beginning of the first month of summer in the Elven solar calendar. Elves believe that all things under the sun occur in cycles. After Midaëte, the days grow shorter and the dying commences, to last until the winter solstice. Summer shrines erected on this day give praise to the sun and life, while acknowledging death's certainty. Spells that protect living things and draw power from the sun's heat are particularly strong near these shrines. Witches use them to bless crops and summon fire. Even godless witchers bow before summer shrines to augment the intensity of their signs. The Witcher 3. A few remarks on basilisks and cockatrices. "Why have you got such big eyes, grandmum?" asked the little girl with worry. "Shriek, shriek," replied the basilisk. "Grandmum, why do you say shriek, shriek?" asked the little girl with surprise. The basilisk didn't reply, but instead clamped its toothy, venomous maw over the curious little girl and swallowed her up. Luckily, a witcher by the name of Eskel was wandering these lands in search of a Zoigl. The witcher was experienced and so knew basilisks only turned people into stone in fairy tales. He also knew it's best to avoid their venom. Eskel had noticed the monster had recently eaten, and before anyone could say "ready, steady, go," he threw himself at the beast and cut it open with his silver sword. The basilisk's stomach opened up, and the witcher saw the half-digested, foolish little girl inside. The Witcher 1. Ars Amandi by Publius Nosso. The way to a man's heart is through his stomach. The way to a lady's heart is paved with beautiful words and appropriate gifts. Many have lost fortunes trying to win a woman's heart. This book explains how to avoid that fate. One must know that ladies' tastes vary according to their status. A gift fit for a peasant girl will not please a noblewoman. Simple girls will be happy with a flower, while refined courtesans will laugh at a bouquet and only show favor when she's presented with a gold ring. But beware of traps. Sometimes, with much effort, you win a lady's heart only to become her slave, ready to fulfill her every wish. Avoid earning the heart of your woman at the cost of your own head. The Witcher 1. The Double Cross of Alzur, an edition censored by the Brotherhood. I was vested with the thankless responsibility of preparing a new edition of this incomplete tome of Alzur, some of its pages have been torn out, which describes the methods of creating monstrous beasts. Whoever remembers the Koshé or the V of Maribor knows the evil the book has caused, especially the double cross of Alzur described therein. The following edition provides information on creatures such as the Frightener or the Koshé, but does not contain the secrets of creating these beasts. To ensure safety, I would nevertheless suggest that readers never utter any formulae out loud and speak all vowels while inhaling. The Witcher 1. Lectures on Security and Hygiene in Magic. Once an absent-minded mage created a golem, animated it by casting Alzur's thunder, and ordered his new servant to fetch water before burying himself in his scholarly books. The golem kept carrying water day and night, without pause, and ultimately flooded not only the mage's house, but the whole city. As you can see, my young students of the art, improper use of tools and a lack of elementary training may cause a tragedy. The Witcher 3. The Horse Whistler. Breaking in a horse's psyche is a simple matter of instilling your will as the rider into your mount, acquiring its trust, and training its obedience. Horses are intelligent, noble beasts, so they should be treated with tenderness and a decisive and firm energy. Mayer, the unquestioned authority in this area, emphasizes that when training one's mount, a rider must eternally be on the lookout for errors in the training itself. Every time the taming process ends in failure, the rider must look for the blocking error first of all in his own actions, secondly in the horse's anatomy, and only in a last resort by concluding the horse has a naturally difficult temperament. Adhering to this principle protects one from undue punishments, which destroy the possibility of reaching an understanding between rider and mount and make it impossible to gain the animal's trust. The Witcher 3. Toussaint, a duchy out of tales of fantasy and wonder. When a traveler from the northern realms first crosses the border into Toussaint, he feels at once as though he has stepped into a land ripped straight from the pages of a fantastic fairy tale. He will know no inclement weather there, for even the winters in Toussaint are mild and sunny, with only gentle, calming breezes and not a hint of gale. He will know no hunger, for the trees and bushes of that land burst with ripe and juicy fruits all the year long. He will know no loneliness, for each and every soul he encounters will treat him like a long-lost friend. He will not find a single backwater of dullness, boredom, or inquietude in this overflowing stream of marvel. In Toussaint, the wine rages in torrents, music plays ceaselessly, and everywhere the air is filled with the sound of bird-song and the twittering of beautiful maids, who are never stingy with their ample charms when a handsome knight comes a-calling. The capital of the duchy, Beauclair, is an architectural gem, full of glorious elven monuments, delicately soaring towers, masterfully crafted reliefs, and atmospherically mysterious ruins. Only the rare sun in a field of black, the odd golden dark stain on an otherwise pristine edifice, reminds us that this land, this fable incarnate, is a vassal of Nilfgaard. The Witcher 2. Gargoyles, gutters, splutters, maintenance and repair.
Theorists of magic still argue about how gargoyles should be classified. This author favors the school which claims they're a type of golem. For gargoyles are nothing more than fancy sculptures brought to life by magic in order to perform menial duties. They can complete only the most rudimentary tasks, so they are often found guarding a territory even if their creator turned to dust long ago. He who seeks to deactivate the creatures permanently must first locate the place from which they are controlled. Once there, he must extinguish the magic runes that control the construct's will. The Witcher 2, Slaves of the Curse. Draugs are commanders, and Draugirs are their wraith soldiers. A Draug calls Draugirs into existence on battlefields or in cemeteries by the sheer force of his will. Like the Draug himself, these minions arise from damned souls trapped within shells formed of the remnants of arms, armor, war machines, and corpses that were torn apart by scavengers. The Witcher 1, Monstrum, or Description of the Witcher. Anonymous. Indeed, there is nothing more repulsive than these monsters that defy nature and are known by the name of Witcher, as they are the offspring of foul sorcery and witchcraft. They are unscrupulous scoundrels without conscience and virtue, veritable creatures from hell, capable only of taking lives. They have no place amongst decent and honest folk. And this Kaer Morhen where these villains nest and practice foul rituals must be wiped off the face of the earth, and all evil traces of it need to be treated with salt and saltpeter to complete the deed.
The Witcher 1, An Invitation to Magic, by Annabelle Radfind. Magic is an incarnation of chaos, a key which opens forbidden doors to nightmares, to the powers of pure evil capable of annihilating the entire world. Do you not fear magic? Do you still want to tame it, to wield it? Know then that magic is a talent given only to the chosen few. Have you found this talent within you? Do you want to tap into this source? Know then that years of intensive study await you. You must gain extensive knowledge and constantly sharpen your mind. Creative magic is not witcher signs and parlor tricks. Magic is an art. Once you learn to control the art, you will gain power over fire, water, earth, and air. Power over people's minds. Power over yourself. The Witcher 2, Wraiths, Fear and Trembling. Wraiths are not, as some claim, the outward manifestations of an inner fear. They are visible, tangible, and dangerous on top of that. According to the teachings of priests, those who died suddenly without completing their tasks in this vale of tears become such specters. Wraiths have their own aims. Sometimes they remain unaware of them, but more often than not, they pursue their calling without the slightest regard for the living.
The Witcher 3, The Chronicles of Redania. Verdonk the Elf. Despite what one might conclude from his moniker, not one drop of elven blood flowed in King Verdonk's veins. They called him the Elf because of his exceptional beauty, and for the great admiration he felt for the Iron Shade. This fascination, seemingly harmless, would have horrible long-term consequences. King Verdonk, spitting in the face of all laws and customs, chose as his wife a half-elf, and one of low status at that, known as Beatrix of Kovir. The fruit of this regrettable and short-lived mésalliance was Falca, who later formed the bloody revolt against her own father. Though this uprising was ultimately extinguished and Falca herself was burned at the stake, the young state was thereafter thrown into chaos for years to come.
The Witcher 3, Heroes of Skellige, Sov. Legend states that Clan Brokvar, based on the Isle of Speakerog, was founded by Sov. This hero took as his wife the lovely yet extremely quarrelsome Ulula. He tried countless ways to tame her, but no matter what lengths he went to, he could not get along with her. Finally, he sailed to Hindusfjall to meditate in Hindar, the sacred grove. Heimdall and Freya took pity on him and gave him the formula for a potion that would grant him understanding. They also instructed him to take a new approach, to do something he had never done before, to resolve his conflicts with his wife. In order to gather the required ingredients, Sov had to kill a monster, climb the highest mountain in the Isles, and dive into the deepest undersea chasm. Then he prepared the potion, quaffed it, and, searching for another approach to the conflict, began meditating while hanging from a tree by one leg. In this manner he achieved enlightenment, and returned to Speakerog to live with Ulula in peace and harmony to the end of their days.
The Witcher 3, Diary of a Fire Swallower. I was at Loch Muin. That's right, the summit of summits itself. We'd gone there, my troopmates and I, knowing there'd be a meeting of the mighty in the ruins. You see, whenever big shots gather to chew some particularly grisly fat, there's coin to be had for performing men like us. Tired jaws need to relax with some laughing and indulging in other sorts of simple delights. I learned this as a lad from my old man, who'd dragged me around to juggle outside courts and conventions all over the continent. And so now, plying my own trade as a fire swallower, I towed the lads up soon as I caught word of what was brewing in Lochmuin, and we turned our wagons that-a-way at once. I'm not much one for politics, but I couldn't help but listen to some of it this time. You see, we Temerians had just lost our king, and our future was to be decided at that very summit, with John Natalis representing our side in the matter. Radovid was there too, a young pup then, though emanating strength like a grey-haired alpha wolf. It seemed this wolf was licking his chops over Temeria like it was a bit of right carrion. The rest was dull, a lot of talk about the uprising in Edirn and its leader Saskia, who they called the Virgin, though I never got the chance to check personally whether that was accurate. The Nilfgaardians had a delegate, some Shillard fellow, and mages were there talking about restoring the Conclave and Supreme Council of Sorcerers. I didn't listen to much of that. My eyes were glued to the unusually large number of armed troops present at these peaceful talks. Steel-plated grunts clenched pointy weapons and paced the ruins' courtyards everywhere you looked. Radovid had even brought the nightly Order of the Flaming Rose, those arrogant pricks ready to bash anyone who doesn't think the same as them. Though the coin was coming in amply, we didn't wait around to see how things would develop, just loaded our stuff into our wagon and left at a trot. As we mounted the pass, we looked back to see pillars of smoke, black as pitch, rising above Lochmuin.
The Witcher 3, The Slaughter of Cintra. The cavalcade of riders pounded across the blood-soaked courtyard. They looked at no one and asked no questions. They knew exactly where they were going and why. To kill the old queen and capture the Cintran princess. As to what would become of her after that, no one would say. Calanthe and a group of her most loyal subjects had barricaded themselves inside the castle. They were protected by stone walls and a gate sealed by a spell, but they all realized neither would last long against a concentrated assault by the Nilfgaardian army and the mages supporting it. After 4 days, enemy soldiers forced their way inside. The Witcher 2, More Than Aretuza. Among Kaedweni cities, Banard certainly deserves a mention, for it is famous for the school of young adepts of the magical arts. Many eminent sorcerers of our times were taught there. Banard also provides an armored banner, a formation highly esteemed in the Kaedweni army. The Witcher 2, Balin's Journal 1. Foreman Balin's Journal, the first fragment. Work is going as planned. It seems our yield will be even greater than anticipated. Moreover, I believe we can squeeze much more from this mine. We'll delve deeper, bring up more wealth, and Vergen will regain its past significance. The Witcher 2, Balin's Journal 2. Foreman Balin's Journal, the second fragment. This morning we discovered small slits in the tunnel walls. The cracks don't seem to be dangerous, but I ordered additional wooden supports to be placed just to be sure. Rudolf Ferdinand is spluttering. I think he does not enjoy the temperature at this depth. Old Nain Zamenhof claims to hear knocking. I bet he has finally flipped for good. I think we're getting close to a large load, and I've sent for a geologist. The Witcher 2, Balin's Journal 3. Foreman Balin's Journal, the third fragment. Monsters. Monsters everywhere. The legends were true. It's Durin's bane. Too deep we delved and awoke a nameless fear. This is all my fault, so I must try to stop the beast myself. Fly, you fools! The Witcher 2, Balin's Journal 4. Foreman Balin's Journal, the final fragment. I, Balin Ferguson, record these words in the event I should die, for I wish to be recognized by name. It is the 4th day since I hid in this branch of the shaft. Separated from the monsters by traps, I am safe, but how long will I survive without water? I have the key to the storeroom, and I can think of nothing else than to sneak there quietly to get provisions. Reason, however, tells me the storeroom is too far, and I won't be able to make it. The monsters are trying to reach me again, so I have to wait anyway. Later when I'm desperate, who knows? The Witcher 1, The Secret Gates. The Secret Gates by Ransant Alvaro. Old men say that long, long ago a mage lived in the swamp. He spent his days and nights poring over his books and pipettes. They say he was seeking a stone that turns lead into gold and springs water into moonshine. In other words, a stone that sublimates all matter. The gods were not pleased, because his pride would reach where no mortal should. Thus, one night a terrible storm struck the mage's tower down. However, he built a new one and cast spells to tame the storm. This tower stood until another dark night, when the earth itself moved and toppled it. Yet he built a new one and cast spells to bind the earth itself. And so neither heaven nor earth could harm the mage.
Then one day, he disappeared. Some say he took on an apprentice, and this brought him to his doom. Others claim a woman was his undoing. Yet others that his own creations turned against the mage. In any case, the tower stands locked and guards its secrets, and what lurks inside, nobody knows.
The Witcher 3: How to Avoid Colossal Vessels. On the rolling deep, when there's nothing to rest your eyes upon save the horizon, you get lulled into a false sense of security which can easily spell your doom. For no man knows the day or the hour, nor does any sailor know when a small dot at the end of his vision will turn into a Nilfgaardian Dromont racing towards him, its sails puffed full and its prow ready to cleave his hull like an axe. Prevention is the first and best way to avoid such collisions. You must keep your eyes pried wide open, even when the waters are smooth as a newborn's hindquarters and there's not a speck of land nor a hint of a foreign flag to be seen. When vision fails in dark or murk, one must keep an ear cocked, especially in the waters near Skellige, for the oarsmen of the archipelago add muster to their rowing with song, and their thunderous voices carry far, so they can often be heard before they are seen. And it's a powerful boon that they thus reveal themselves, for a collision with a Skellige longship damns one doubly, for the vessel itself is armored prow to stern, while inside are ferocious battle-hardened warriors. The Witcher 3: In Beast's Clothing. They entered his hut and began to search. First they tore through his bed. Dried twigs covered the sheet. That was the first proof, for werewolves return at dawn after a night of hunting, their bare feet covered in the forest droppings. They found the second proof under his bed, a wolf's hide. The werewolf surely dressed himself in it when transforming with the setting sun, and shed it again when he turned to man the next day. Having found these powerful proofs, they ceased deliberation and began the hunt, vowing to find the lycanthrope and bind him in silver chains. The Witcher 3: My Evening with a Vampire. You will no doubt call me a liar, a cheat, and a madman. You'll shake your head in pity and snort in disbelief. But I promise you, I swear by all the gods, everything which you shall read in these pages to follow is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. I met the vampire of which I write years ago, in an inn in Beauclair. He introduced himself to me as Regis, and said he was a barber and a medic. Since he looked in every aspect like a mortal man, I might never have even suspected his true nature, had not a fire broke out shortly thereafter in the establishment in which we were residing. This Regis, if that truly was his name, stood completely untouched by the flames, whereas my own clothing quickly caught fire. The vampire carried me out of the burning inn, saving my life from certain death, then treated my numerous wounds. At first, Regis refused to answer my query as to how he had miraculously survived the furnace-like temperatures inside the burning inn, without so much as a scratch on his body or a hair singed on his head. Eventually, however, he must have sensed I was a man of the world, one who would not jump to hasty judgments based on appearance or species, and revealed his identity, along with a great number of highly interesting facts. According to Regis, not all vampires are alike. This vast family contains both mindless catechins, fledders, and echimeras, who in form resemble overgrown bats far more than humans, as well as alps and bruchets, who look remarkably like comely maids. In addition to these, there are the even more powerful higher vampires, to which genus belonged my unexpected acquaintance. Not even a witcher can discern a higher vampire from a mortal man. Contrary to popular belief, they cannot be killed by pounding aspen stakes into their chests, nor by cutting off their heads, nor, as I can vouch for based on personal experience, by fire. They do not fear running water, garlic, or the symbols of any creed. It might be some consolation to learn a vampire's bite does not turn a human into one of their number, and they do not in any way need our blood in order to survive. To them, it is merely a delicacy in which they indulge from time to time, like men do with fine wine. Regis asked me to keep his tale to myself, but now, as I lay on my deathbed, I feel that I must share this secret knowledge, even if it means breaking my word to this most noble individual. The Witcher 1: Cults and Religions of the Nordlings. Cults and Religions of the Nordlings by Stefan Keller. Among the numerous faiths of the Nordlings, the most widespread is the cult of Midaëte, a goddess in three forms: young girl, mature woman, and old hag. Midaëte is a mother goddess, caring for her children. Primarily women pray to her, though men in need might also utter supplications. The religion is a vestige of the old matriarchy and testifies to the weakness of the Nordlings. People who worship female deities are soft-hearted and incapable of preparing their sons for war. In recent years, the cult of Midaëte has found a rival in the cult of the Eternal Fire, which came out of Novigrad. Clerics of the Eternal Fire demonstrate fanaticism and almost complete devotion. The religion is hostile toward any form of otherness, including non-humans.
The Order of the Flaming Rose is the cult's military arm. The treatise also examines other faiths, including the cult of the Lionhead Spider. The Witcher 1 – Basics of Alchemy. Basics of Alchemy by Master Jeremiah. To understand alchemy, you must understand two great truths. First truth, as above, so below. Second truth, everything is one. These truths teach that alchemical substances are everywhere around you, in field herbs, in human and animal bowels, even in rocks. This is because alchemy is life, and life is alchemy. Once you understand alchemical processes, you will understand the processes of life, and the world of nature will become an open book. Yet alchemy is also knowledge. Does the potion require a flower or a leaf? Where is vermilion found, in the kidney or the eye? These questions are answered by books. Therefore, read both the old masters and the new works. Practice your herbalist skills and mixing oils and powders. However, first and foremost, experiment, because the greatest discoveries in alchemy have come about through experimentation. The Witcher 3, Ervil's Diary. The 30th of Burke. This time of year the flowers should be in full bloom, but instead snow covers all. Spring's clearly going to be late. Food will be dear soon, that's certain. The 12th of Blath. It's colder and colder. Snow has been falling non-stop for 37 days now. Folk don't even bother clearing it anymore. There are no more streets, only tunnels dug through the snow. The 21st of Fane. The snow never stops falling. Our larder is bare. At least we can melt snow to slake our thirst, though I don't know how long our wood will last. For now, we're alive. The Witcher 3, Yennefer's Journal. My thoughts turn with increasing frequency to the idea of capturing a gene. If I could just harness its power, there's much I would gain. Amos var Ipsis' tome confirms what I have long suspected, that despite my failure to do so previously, taming a gene is, in fact, possible. According to var Ipsis, the difficulties involved in bending such a being to one's will can be overcome. He managed to do so at the least. Alas, this does not mean my methods will necessarily be useful to me. Each gene is different. Each case requires a singular approach. I've more experience unraveling such magic riddles than almost anyone else alive. And if Geralt, with his talent for wrestling unruly magic beings, agrees to help, we might just find a way to do it. The problem is, we must first find a gene, a daunting task unto itself. The Witcher 2, Lure of the Temptress. The succubus, often mistakenly believed to be a higher vampire, is a post-conjunction creature, therefore a visitor from another world trapped in our reality. The beast has the form of a comely female with hooves instead of feet. However, her partial animal appearance has no meaning for the youths the monster entices like a consummate temptress. Those seduced by a succubus lose their heads as if it was a woman, and the beast accepts all attentions, leading the young men to ruin, draining their life force. One seduced by a succubus becomes melancholic, loses appetite and all interest in the world. Bereft of strength, he moons around with a pale face and sighs heavily. He also reeks of sulphur, as the smell permeates him when he mates with the beastie. To cure him of this fatal addiction, one should acquaint him with the pleasant, dowered lassies, and treat him to cold decoctions. The Witcher 3, Laura Doran and Crenigan of Lod. Love knows no bounds, the saying claims. History knows no better proof of this adage than the romance between Laura Doran and Crenigan of Lod. She, a powerful elven sage, bearer of the elder blood, promised to the great Avalak. He, a human mage of great talent and humble birth. She, able to live centuries, if not millennia. He, likely to live no more than 60 years and 10, like each of us. They should have hated each other, scorned each other. Instead, they burned for one another with a powerful love. Heedless to the war raging around them, to the condemnations and curses raining down on them from all sides, they led a humble and happy life. Soon Lara was with child. A babe born of Lara and Crenigan might have joined the best of both races, united them at long last. Alas, this was not to be. Humans considered Crenigan a traitor and a renegade. They demanded he abandon Lara, and when he refused, they decided to murder them both. Crenigan died while Lara, still heavy with child, escaped with her life. She ran to Tretigor to beg succor and support from Kero, Queen of Redania. What then came to pass? Here, elven and human sources diverge, presenting two irreconcilable versions. According to the chroniclers of the Iron Shade, her pleas did not soften the stony Dwan hearts, the hearts of merciless and cruel humans.
When Laura, pleading for mercy, if not for her then at least for her child, clutched onto the door of the royal carriage, the queen ordered her maimer to strike with his sword and cut off her fingers. That night, crushed by a fierce frost, Lara breathed her last sigh, on a hill in the woods, giving birth to a daughter, who she protected with the fading embers of her own warmth. Human legends, however, have Kero saying, "Ask not me for grace, ask instead those whom you have harmed with your magic. Brave you were when you wrought those foul deeds. Brave be you now when the pursuit of justice nears. Your sins are not in my power to forgive." In reply, Laura said, "My doom is at hand, but yours, Queen, is also nigh. Remember Lara Dorin in that terrible hour, Queen. Remember her death and her curse. And know that my curse will hound you and your seed. To the 10th generation will it damn your line." Wherein lies the truth cannot be said. Both versions are surely false, for both seek to blacken their enemy. Sad is Laura's end. The hate between races which Krennigan wished so badly to end is now so strong that its darkness has forever obscured the truth of her fate. The Witcher 3 – Introduction to Applied Magic. Magic is the science of harnessing, subduing, and making use of the power of the elements. It is also an incarnation of chaos, which is why no one without proper training should ever dabble in any of its domains. Expert mages make of magic an art, but the road to virtuosity leads through years of practice, study, and hard work, and requires a considerable amount of inborn talent. Magic was implanted in our world through the conjunction of the spheres, and was discovered to be a living, changeable, and controllable being shortly thereafter. The name of the first mage, the one who discovered this talent within himself and grappled with its power, is unknown. We do know, however, that in a relatively short period of time after the discovery of magic, groups began to form in which talented beings could work together on developing their abilities. This period is usually considered the beginning of magic as a science, and these groups, the prototypes of the magic schools. The fundamental planes from which one might draw magic power are earth, water, air, and fire. In the tome which you currently hold, each of these will have a separate chapter dedicated to it, ordered according to the level of difficulty and danger associated with the element discussed. The Witcher 3 – Brother Alderbert's Bestiary. Each beast herein described in two manners ye may hunt. Either seek ye tracks, follow and strike the foulness wherever in its wild ye find it, or lure it to a chosen place and engage it there in advantageous battle. The latter poses less risk, but the hunter exposes no chance for an unexpected fight. Note, however, that to lure a beast into a trap, first its tastes and behaviors ye must know. As for fork-tails, bait them thusly. Pound a stake in the soil, bind a goat to it, then hide ye in near to shrubbery post-haste. The beast, lured by the caprine odour, will without fail soon come. If it is a griffin ye seek to slay, take ye buckthorn from deep water. The mighty stench of this herb is to griffins like fresh-roasted meat of the primest sort, and so come they will forthwith, though far away they might be. Turning to drowners and water hags, it is known to all and sundry that fish and rotting mollusks are their loves, and as for trolls, common hooch is their weakness. The Witcher 1 – Ostrich Journal. I curse you, Foltest, and hope you rot amidst worms in hell. I cursed your incestuous deeds. Your sister Ada deserved better. I implore destiny to render the child born of your lechery as monstrous as you. If the witch spoke truly, you will soon taste my vengeance. I need only prepare the ingredients and utter the words thrice. Some say that not even the words are necessary, that hatred alone suffices. Know that my hatred is fierce. On the margins, someone made notes, as if researching how to renew the curse of the Striga. The Witcher 2 – Marshal Milan Ropanek. Not much apart from memories of its former glory remain of Loch Moine, an elven city situated along the upper reaches of the Pontar, amidst the peaks of the Blue Mountains. It must at one time have been a breathtaking sight, emerging from the morning mists. Today only white ruins mark where it once proudly stood. Centuries ago it was here that the sorcerer Geoffrey Monk brought with him the Sorcerers, a group of human children with a gift for the power, to hand them over to the Elven Sages for training. He managed to overcome the distrust of this elder race, and it seemed that a path to coexistence and cooperation between humans and elves had been opened. Yet history took an altogether different course. A few years later, Redanian armies massacred Loch Moine's population, killing all the elves regardless of gender and age. Thus began a war that ended with Elrond's uprising and the massacre at Sherowed, after which most of the surviving elves retreated east into the inaccessible Blue Mountains.
The Witcher 2, Song of the Hunt. The Song of the Hunt. Tracing an ever wider spiral, the hunt circles the world of mortals. Everything decays in their centrifugal vortex. Pure anarchy rages over the world. The winds of war swell on blood, flooding the rites of ancient innocence. The best lose all hope, and the worst revel in fervent and fitful power. Looking-glass images without heart or mind haunt the worlds in the name of those who have preserved blood from blood and feed on unrestrained lust.
The Witcher 3, Letter from Witcher Pogrom of the Viper School. To Ivar Evil Eye, Master Witcher of the Viper School. I have now found all the legendary diagrams once belonging to our order. Certain complications have arisen, however. On the way back to our keep, I stopped to rest the night in a village in the Temerian borderlands. The blasted peasants decided to make me into their scapegoat and accuse me of kidnapping some beekeeper's brat. They took me into the local lordling's castle for interrogation, during which they found and confiscated one of the diagrams. But do not fear, I'll get it back. They did not find the others. I have invoked Temerian common law and demanded a trial by ordeal instead of submitting to the whims of this baronet. My request was granted, and tomorrow I am to cleanse the baronet's family crypt of wraiths. I expect this will prove little trouble. Perhaps I will already have returned to our keep by the time you receive this letter. Light the furnaces. We'll have some forging to do. Pogrom.
The Witcher 3, Beware! Haunted house and cheating merchant. To all upstanding residents of Novigrad, hark the words and warning of a loyal fellow townsman. Do not do business with that blackguard de Jonquier. Though his line is held in high esteem and considered honorable, he himself is a swine and a cheat. He sold me a residence at a most attractive price, knowing all the while that the house was haunted. There can be no thought of inhabiting it, for an evil spirit torments all who set foot therein. For now the ghost contents itself with rattlings and prankings, but who knows what foul deeds it will turn to in time. Let then anyone with a half-bit of wit about them stay far away from said home, and never make a deal of any sorts with this defrauding de Jonquier. The Witcher 3, Dobromir's Journal. Da's chewing my head off about going to the lighthouse, about the fire needing tending. Thing is, don't give a ploughing rat's arse, frankly. What am I, some golem fit for naught but climbing up there 4 times a day to drop off wood and pour oil? I'd much rather learn how to work a forge in town or at some gnomish foundry. Grandpa Amzavri was a smith, weren't he? Even forged witcher blades. So who's to say none of his talent trickled down to me?
The Witcher 1, The Aftermath of the War. The Aftermath of the War by Jurga of Maribor. It should be stated clearly and plainly, the order created after the war with Nilfgaard is no order. It is a mess. Kings still tremble before the might of the Black Ones. Nilfgaard still threatens the north. Sorceresses and spies work from the shadows, pulling puppet strings. Monsters roam the roads while soldiers do what they want and oppress simple folk. A mess, I say. Amongst all the dangers, 2 are especially significant. The first comes from the non-humans, who have assimilated only superficially. Nilfgaard has given the elves hope for a rebirth. It has placed swords in their hands and a slogan on their lips. We will know no peace while the non-humans walk the earth. The second resides in the new religious movements. Only a few years ago, the cult of the eternal fire was laughed at. How can one worship fire? Some mocked it, saying maybe we should start worshipping mud or the winds. They now bow their heads before the might of the order and demonstrate themselves to be zealous neophytes. Fundamentalism has always drawn strength from hypocrisy and ignorance. Never before in history, however, has there been so much on which to draw. What, then, can an ordinary man do in such turbulent times? Maintain his integrity and decency. That's what. The Witcher 1, Disenchanting a Striga. Disenchanting a Striga by Anonymous. The Witcher then said to King Foltest, "Pay me, sire, and I will find your daughter in the Dark Tomb. I'll restore her human form if I can, and if I cannot, then I will not hesitate to kill the princess." The king understood this was his only chance, and so placed his daughter's fate in the Witcher's hands. The conjurer struggled with the Striga for hours. He warded her off with silver and magic arts. He grappled with the beast and did not let her wound him, but avoided causing serious harm to her as well. Finally, he locked himself in the crypt, sealed the entrance with magic, and waited until dawn. Witchers possess great knowledge about monsters, and know that the rooster's morning call is enough to disenchant a cursed creature. The Witcher 2, The Arrakis, A Study.
Arachnids are lone hunters. They patiently wait for their prey to kill it with one swift strike when it appears. The same is true for the Arachis, a huge creature that took a liking to the riverside forest, becoming its undisputed king, a ruler who does not tolerate other hunters on its territory, including witchers. The Witcher 2, the Dun Banner. The Dun Banner rose to fame during the last wars with Nilfgaard, a Kedwenny light cavalry regiment. Initially, it patrolled the area around Ban Glean. Called to the front, it proved its mettle during the incursion into Upper Edirn, but it was the chroniclers of the Battle of Brenna who made the unit famous. Because history likes to repeat itself, several years later the Dun Banner once again led Hensel's foray into Edirn. This time, it suffered a crushing defeat, at the hand of an ostensible ally no less, the sorcerer Sabrina Glevissig. Decimated beyond recognition, the unit was never reformed, and its characteristic cloaks and beaverskin caps, which once bred terror into the hearts of Kedwen's foes, became a thing of the past, though they remain identifying marks by which the unit's few surviving former members recognize one another. The Witcher 3, Emir von Emrys, a biography. Childhood and early manhood. Though the Nilfgaardian throne was his by right of birth, it would be many long years before Emir von Emrys sat upon it. When he was but 13, an uprising engulfed the empire's capital. A usurper seized power, overthrowing Emir's father, Fergus von Emrys, who then refused to grant legitimacy to the coup. The usurper then decided he would break Fergus by having mages torture his son and heir, Emir. He failed in his plan and was forced to kill Fergus, and Emir escaped, presumably to a land beyond the empire's borders. No reliable accounts of the emperor's actions in exile exist. Some claim he fell into the company of a knight-errant, serving as his squire. This seems plausible enough, though the tales about the eccentric knight's proclivity to charge at windmills must surely be storytellers' exaggerations. A few unreliable reports claim a connection between Emir and the fabled Urchian of Erlenwald, who saved the life of King Rognar of Cintra. This seems far less likely, for it is public record that when the Witcher Geralt of Rivia lifted Urchian's curse, he was revealed to be a duke named Duni, who later wed Rognar's daughter Pavetta, and perished at her side when their ship went down at sea. What is known for certain is that around the time of this great tragedy for the Kingdom of Cintra, Emir reappeared in the Empire and led a revolt to overthrow the usurper and restore his own birthright. Soon after, he led the Empire's armies in their successful conquest of Cintra, setting a tone of determined military expansion that would endure through the rest of his reign. The Witcher 3, Elemental Empires, by John Batista. None of the 4 planes or dimensions, those of fire, water, earth, and air, is accessible to mere mortals. They are inhabited, however, by creatures known as genies. There are 4 types, each corresponding to one of the 4 elements which comprise their respective essences. Each type of genie also counts its antithesis among the others. Thus, the Marides, aligned with the element of water, are opposed by the fiery Ifrits. The plane of earth is inhabited by the Dao genies, and the dimension of air which opposes it is home for the Jinni, whose name, incidentally, is the root of the word genie. This last term is often used by simple folk to refer to all creatures that inhabit the elemental planes, which is an obvious blunder. Unusually powerful sorcerers can sometimes bind such beings and bend them to their will, thus acquiring tremendous might to the point of near omnipotence. For a genie, being the living personification of an element's energies, is akin to an almost boundless reservoir of the power. Thus, its master can draw energy from the genie for spell casting without the tiresome need to channel from additional sources. However, those who are able to bind a genie are few and far between, for the strength of the inhabitants of the 4 planes is matched only by the cunning which they employ to avoid such a fate. The Witcher 3, The Ladies of the Wood. The gods have abandoned us. The mighty of this earth care not for our fate. Only the ladies of the wood watch over Velen. In foul times, when plague or famine steals our harvest, we must beg the ladies for help. If they deem fit, they will hear our pleas and knock back fortune's foul blows. This is how one begs help from the ladies. Find a child young and innocent, and take it to Crookback Bog. Search out the lady's shrine. That is where the trail of treats begins. Set the child off on the trail, and it shall follow its sweet track and find the good ladies. The child will never want for anything ever again, for the ladies are kind and generous. Standing before their shrine, pronounce your request, and the good ladies will hear, for they see and hear all that takes place in their domain. If you made the offering as it must be done, your supplication will be heard. The Witcher 1. The History of the World. The History of the World by Roderick de Novembre. When the criminal's stake had been lit and the flames reached her, she began insulting all the knights, barons, mages, and councillors gathered in the square in such foul language that they were all filled with dread. Though wet logs had been stuck to prevent the hag from burning too quickly and to provide her a chance to suffer in the flames, dry wood was soon added to the fire to end the execution more swiftly. She must truly have harbored a demon inside her, as she uttered not a single scream, though she sizzled fair enough. Instead, she began cursing horribly. "An avenger shall be born from my own blood," she cried. "From the defiled elder blood, a destroyer of nations and worlds will rise. He shall avenge my torment. Death, death and revenge upon you and your offspring." That was all she managed to articulate before she perished. Such was the death of Falca, her punishment for the innocent blood she had spilled. The Witcher 2. Do it yourself. Witchers can enhance their weaponry through crafting. Crafting an item, be it a sword, armor enhancement, or a rune to be branded on a blade, requires a diagram and the components it lists. Diagrams can be bought from merchants or obtained as a reward from appreciative employers. Components can be cut from the corpses of defeated foes, though some may also be found lying around among everyday items. Having collected all the necessary ingredients, a witcher must find and pay a craftsman to produce a given item in his workshop.
The Witcher 3. The Natural Obscurity of Curses. To my dear friends Philip and Anna, from Count Lagerve, Minister of Culture for the Kingdom of Temeria. Vizima, 1265. Whoever thinks curses are only ever manifestations of one being's ill will toward another is sorely mistaken. Shockingly commonplace are reports of curses cast unwittingly on oneself or on objects in one's immediate environment. The consequences of doing so can be difficult to predict. In many cases, they lead to harm or even the death of the person afflicted by the curses, or of the people spending time with the object or being on which the curse fell. That is why it is so essential to take preventative measures to safeguard oneself as thoroughly as possible against the casting of curses. As an absolute minimum, Madame Amelia Veracruz Leon recommends cleansing oneself of all negative thoughts, striving to be at one with the world, and achieving harmony between body and mind. The Witcher 3. Monumenta Elforum. To my beloved Y, I still await your kestrel. Monumenta Elforum by Istred of Edginvale. Let us begin, dear reader, with a riddle. What links a town like Vizima, the proud capital of Temeria, or Oxenfurt, a center of learning for all the north, with Edginvale, a provincial settlement at the end of the known world? Nothing, it would seem. After all, each of these places looks, sounds, and even smells different. Their origins, however, are identical. All were founded atop ancient elven cities. The ruins sprawling beneath their streets bear witness to this fact. A tour of elven monuments is best begun in Vizima, in the city sewers to be precise. A dangerous place to be sure, so it's worth bringing along a well-armed guide. A branch of the sewers leads to the remains of an Einshade city. One can still admire its masterfully carved plafonds, peer into its immaculately polished marble facings, find artifacts discarded by the elder race, and hold ancient tomes that disintegrate in one's hands. Equally impressive monuments of elven culture can be found only in Oxenfurt, as well as somewhere in the wilds of Velen, though I have been unable to verify this information personally. What caused elven civilization to collapse? Plague? Cataclysm? No, dear reader. The destruction was caused by us, by humans. We drove the elves from their cities, and instead of occupying their marvelous palaces, we dismantled them to build our meager and crooked huts. All that remains is that which we covered in debris and sludge, and then wiped from our memories for centuries. The Witcher 1. Recent History. Recent History by Anonymous. Field Marshal Cohorn's strategy failed when his flanking maneuver was stopped by the heroic Viziman infantry led by Governor Bronnibor, though they paid dearly for their heroism in blood. While the Vizimans resisted, Nilfgaard's left flank crumbled. Some began to flee, while others banded into small groups to defend themselves as they were surrounded. The same soon happened on the right, where the tenacity of the dwarves and mercenaries finally broke Nilfgaard's momentum.
A loud cry of triumph rose on the battlefield as the hearts of the royal knights filled with new courage. Nilfgaardian spirits fell, the men's hands went limp, and our warriors began cutting them down. And Field Marshal Menno Cohorn realized the battle was lost as he saw his men being killed and dispersed all around. His officers and knights came to him leading a fresh horse, urging him to flee, to save his life. But the Nilfgaardian marshal's heart was fearless. "It wouldn't be right," he said, refusing the reins. "It wouldn't be right to run like a coward from the field on which, under my orders, so many good men have fallen for the Emperor." The Witcher 1. Berenger's Notes on the Beast. The Beast. First Night. 95 kilograms of muscle, height around 4.5 feet, fangs the length of a man's thumb, to be avoided. Shares characteristics with Alzur's demon. Second Night. Summons Bargus with its howling. Has the ability to disappear, probably by assuming spectral or spiritual form. Can only be seen with the help of a potion. Third Night. Highly resistant to iron and signs, walked right over 3 Eardens without noticing. Fourth Night. All features of Alzur's demon confirmed. The beast asks a question. Those who answer correctly stand a chance of slaying it. The Witcher 3. Beasts of the Tukaj Foothills. The peasants of the Tukaj Foothills say fiends are born of magic, for at times witches cast spells on bears, causing them to mount boars, and the resultant offspring is neither boar nor bear, but has the makings of a fiend. Usually such boar piglets die of hunger, but there are times found taken in by witches. Raised on enchanted milk, they grow in strength, and soon enough the milk is no longer enough for them. Now fiends, they start hunting and kill their victims with the ferocity of a boar and the strength of a bear. Yet they remain ever true to their mothers, meaning the witches. The witches protect them from danger, answer their every summons, and aid them in all things.
The Witcher 3. Beliefs of Skellige. Druids. The disciples of the Isle's local pantheon are not the sole spiritual devotees in Skellige, for some druids also call the archipelago home. Yet this is no cause for conflict, for Freya's adherents and the druid circle coexist and treat each other with great respect. What wields these two faiths together? A common worship of the divinity found in the earth, fertility, love, and birth. To the druids, men form a part of nature and should treat the world around them with the utmost respect. They hold that since nature gave life, her most precious gift, to humans and the other civilized races, they should live in harmony with her, yielding their will to hers. Druids are seen as wise men, and priests are held in high esteem by society. They act as spiritual guides, herbalists, and alchemists. Skellige seek their counsel in times of trouble, summon them when ill, and ask them to settle thorny conflicts. Like their continental brethren, the Druids of Skellige have a circle, an area set aside in their holy grove where they assemble, meditate, and study sacred tomes. Many druids are capable of wielding magic.
The Witcher 2. Bruche, Eulogists of Death. The Bruche is a higher vampire, that is, a post-conjunction creature, an intruder in our world. She assumes the form of a beautiful woman, then turns terrifying when she grows hungry and attacks. As befits a vampire, the Bruche drinks blood. The victim of a Bruche is often both her lover and her chief source of sustenance. The Witcher 3. Do-it-yourself. How many times have you cursed a tailor for sewing a shirt more crooked than that infamous home in Novigrad? How many times have you argued with a smith who proved unable to forge a simple horseshoe in a month? How many times will you steal food from your children's mouths because some armorer demands a koviri fortune for a ho-hum helmet? Enough. Basta, I say, and so should you. Empowered by the tome you hold in your hands and a few simple tools, you shall be able to perform basic repairs all by yourself, and perhaps even create something from scratch. So show those extortioners from the crafting guilds who shall make the fool of whom. Roll up your sleeves and get to work.
The Witcher 3. The Cult of Freya. Freya Modron, the Great Mother, teaches us to put our faith in her no matter what life brings. Thus, warriors pray to her before setting off for battle, and the women they leave behind pray for their menfolk's safe return. Freya, as a mother and a goddess, understands all the trials of mankind. She soothes our pains and provides comfort. Yet woe to him who acts against her and violates her eternal laws, handed down for the good of men and the world. Condemnation awaits such men. They will be cut off from the life-giving source of motherly love,
And if they repair not their ways, and, renouncing evil, return to the Mother Goddess's bosom, they shall be cursed for all eternity, they and their line. The Witcher 1. Medical Science. Medicine. For centuries, diseases have plagued mankind. Yet, when Jan Becker subjected the power to his will, people gained a powerful weapon in their fight against disease. Mages study bacteria and viruses, the way germs spread as well as genetics. Their research is used by medics, who set up hospitals and produce increasingly effective medicines. There are also magical potions capable of healing wounds and internal injuries. Many magic users, such as Marty Sodergren or Vizima, have become healers, traveling the world and using their magic for the good of others. Medical Science. Autopsies are not universally approved of in criminal investigations. However, experts acknowledge the value of forensically examining a corpse after witnesses have been questioned and experts consulted. An autopsy can provide valuable information on the identity of a victim and on the precise means by which a crime was committed. While performing an autopsy, you should ask detailed questions based on the knowledge you possess. By rejecting impossibilities one by one, you may ultimately find that the truth lies in the most unlikely of hypotheses. The Witcher 2. The Feudal Society and its Enemies. Scoia'tael is a name used by the rebels fighting for non-human freedom. In the common tongue it means squirrels. As some would have it, it is because of the squirrel tails that adorn their rebels' caps, or from the forest board they had to survive on. Scoia'tael formed units over a score strong, consisting mainly of elves, yet sometimes dwarves and halflings joined too. During the last war against Nilfgaard, the Scoia'tael fought on the side of the Empire, making diversions and great damage beyond our lines. Despite the provisions of the Peace of Cintra, many did not disarm and continued to fight, especially when it turned out that Nilfgaard sacrificed them in the name of peace and gave the unit's leaders to the Nordlings to be executed. The Witcher 2. The Kayrin, a monograph. The Kayrin stands apart among all creatures, large and small, beautiful and horrible. It is unique, not like any other being. Doubtless, it is a post-conjunction creature that appeared in our reality at the time when the worlds intermingled. It made its home in the waters of the Pontar, where it lives to this day. Over the ages, the Chronicles mention several instances of the Kayrin appearing on the river's surface in various places. There is no certainty if these mentions apply to one and the same creature slowly moving up and down the river, or perhaps to the original creature's progeny seen here and there. The Witcher 2. Drowners, a textbook for initiates of the Order of the Flaming Rose. Sometimes drowned men return as monsters to haunt the living. Tormented by their own deaths, they seek to murder others. They prefer to draw their prey underwater. As their victims drown, they tear them into shreds and consume them like soggy biscuits. Such creatures are called drowners. They are numerous on the banks of the Pontar, as this large river with regular shipping and riverside villages provides them with ample sustenance. The Witcher 3. The World Underground. We hunkered down for the night in a cave so enormous that the light from our torches faded into the murky black without revealing any upper bound to it. For most of the night, all we could hear was the rushing of water somewhere beyond the wall of the cave. Yet after some time, it is hard to say how much, for we had lost all sense of where day ended and night began. We heard a sort of scraping noise, and then the sound of boulders shifting. The scraping turned to a roar, but by that time we were already on our feet and running toward the tunnel through which we had entered the cave. We did so none too soon, for the shifting had opened up a new passage in the cavern, which began to spew out hordes of small, misshapen humanoids. Without breaking stride, I looked over my shoulder, and in the midst of the mass of midgets, I spied the outline of a large black troll. Thus began our run for our lives. The Witcher 1. The Curse of Baron Wolfstein and Other Love Stories, by Danielle Stone. Baron Wolfstein buried his face in his hands. His heart was throbbing. Suddenly, the scent of his wife's blood and the blood of his children intensified. The Baron's body swelled as his muscles grew. His noble attire fell in tatters on the marble floor. "My beloved, you're so hairy. You're a werewolf." Bianca went pale. "What about our love?" In reply, she heard a terrifying roar. The Witcher 3. Travel Between Worlds. Running through many folk tales is a common motif of travel between worlds.
By way of example, think of Orpheus, who ventured into the nether realms to save his beloved. Theodore, who, fleeing a hurricane, found himself in the drab and monotonous world of Zo. Or Ithlinne, who tumbled down a ferret hole into a land that had never heard of wonder. Also of this ilk are the many rural legends of people captured by the wild hunt, only to return to their homelands after years of riding the sky with the spectral cavalcade. Academia has, for the most part, dismissed these tales as mere epiphenomena of human irrationality. I, on the other hand, always operate on the assumption that a grain of truth lies in every tale, and so have decided to make it my goal to find it. After years of research, I've ascertained with great certainty that travel between worlds was once indeed possible, though only to a select few. The key is the so-called elder blood, or rather, to use the scholarly term, the gene of Laura Doran, the powerful elven sorceress. By comparing her genealogical tables against all known folk tales, I've been able to determine that she and her descendants were the archetype of the world's traveling heroes of many legends. The bearers of Laura's gene possessed an extraordinary talent which allowed them to move through time and space to reach realms beyond the borders of the known world. The overwhelming majority of them, however, did not know how to control this. It would only manifest itself in extreme situations, pushed out by sudden bursts of emotion or when the bearer's life was at risk. That is how the above-mentioned Orpheus, in shock after the death of his wife, could in fact journey to another world, which he foolishly mistook for the afterlife. The hurricane provided the pressure needed for Theodore, terrorized at home by his zany Uncle N, to unleash his talent and teleport to a world free from madcap antics. And if we read between the lines, we clearly see Ithlinne was a prostitute and a phys-tech addict, and the ferret hole represents how, when she had reached rock bottom, she whisked herself away to another universe to get sober. Unfortunately for any future Ithlinnes, the sad conclusion of my research is this: Laura Doran's line has been irrevocably cut off. The last bearer of her gene, Cirilla Fiona Ellen Rhiannon, heiress to the throne of Cintra, died childless many years ago. The Witcher 3, City Secretary's Diary. The 27th of Blath. We've tried everything. Magic rituals do not work. The gods cannot be moved by sacrifices, nor do the methods of scholars show results. All we have done was for naught. The cold is more and more overwhelming, and the snow falls constantly. We no longer know what to do. The 17th of Fane. At the mayor's request, I went to the mages of Torglervik to ask how to arrest changes to our climate. Sadly, they too are powerless. They claim the frost comes from some opening between the worlds, though I do not know if I understand them properly. One way or another, the snows do not relent. The 35th of Fane. It grows worse every day. The mayor has ordered everyone who can to gather in the lighthouse. We're to bring warm clothing, supplies, and fuel. He hopes together we'll find survival easier. People walk there slowly, bundles of wood scavenged from furniture strapped to their backs. In this weather, even a meager fire is sweeter than honey. The 6th of Lammas. Most who once lived in this city are now dead. The few who might live still cannot be reached. Snow has buried every home. Only a few chimneys stick out in the whiteness. We are almost out of fuel and food. I feel that we will not make it much longer. The Witcher 3. Care for your sword, soldier. A soldier can wear a dirty jerkin, rank footcloths, and stained greaves. A soldier can walk around unshaven, can stink to high heaven, or even have the mange. But his sword must always shine as if straight from the forge. For in a battle, neat clothing and eye-pleasing appearance will not save anyone's life, but a sword will, as long as it's well cared for and the man at the dull end knows what he's doing. So how should you care for your blade? Simple. After every battle, wipe all the blood and guts off it, take an oil-soaked linen rag, then give it a good rub-down. If you're fighting in swamplands or in heavy rain, it's worth your while to coat the blade in beeswax. You should sharpen its edges regularly, using a good whetstone. It's important to take your time in doing this. Each movement should be steady and delicate, like you're stroking a virgin on your first night together. If your sword develops rust, it means you're a slovenly and lazy oaf. Take some sand in your hand and at once scour the blade till its stains disappear. Take heed, though, not to cut your fingers in the doing, for then you won't be any good to anyone.
The Witcher 1, The Flower and the Flame. The Flower and the Flame, by Knight Eric Vogel, with the consent of his superiors. It was at the time when the Order of the White Rose was falling into decay and declining in power. Masters and knights were equally corrupt, lacking in faith. They preferred a warm bed to fighting, street girls to prayer. Rudolf Valaris ceded the title of Grand Master to Jacques de Aldersberg, a man of great piety and righteousness. It is said that during the conclave, a white rose in his hand burst into flames and pious fear seized those present. Jacques had a clear vision of necessary reforms and did not hesitate to put them into effect. He changed the name of the order, which is now known as the Order of the Flaming Rose. Above all, he set the knights a new goal, to serve and protect humans from creatures of darkness and monsters, a category he expanded to include those known as the Scoia'tael. The Witcher 1. The Rivian Pogrom. The Rivian Pogrom, anonymous, based on eyewitness accounts. After the war, the people of Rivia were unhappy. Poverty was the plight of many, and most believed the kings and magnates had betrayed them during the peace talks by not exacting reparations from Nilfgaard. A scapegoat was needed, and as usual, it was the changelings, non-humans and witches. A mere Spock was required to send a furious crowd into the streets. Anyone who seemed different was targeted. Dwarves, elves, and those accused of using spells were all murdered. People also used the situation to settle old scores, loot, and rape. I admit shamefully that few were brave enough to stand in defense of the persecuted. Among those few was the famous Geralt of Rivia, who in seeking to protect his friends was struck with a pitchfork and died. There would have been more victims if not for the intervention of Triss Merigold. The sorceress sent a powerful hailstorm down on the crowd. Only that powerful spell could stop the rioting. What happened to the body of Geralt of Rivia and those who stood by his side, I do not know. The Witcher 1. Lara's Gift. Lara's Gift, based on an elven fairy tale. But even pleas and invocations didn't soften the stone hearts of the Dwan, the cruel and merciless humans. And when Lara grabbed the carriage door, begging for mercy, not for herself but for her child, the queen ordered a thug to swing his sword, cutting her fingers off. The winter cold set in that night, and on a hill amidst woods, Lara drew her last breath while giving birth to her daughter, whom she protected with what warmth was left in her body. And even though night, winter, and blizzard were all around, springtime suddenly came to the hill and Faunawed flowers bloomed. To this day, those flowers are found in only two places, the valley of Dol Blathanna, and on the hill where Loredoran eb Sheadol died. The Witcher 2. The Alchemical Wedding. Witches are famous for brewing potions that give them supernatural abilities in combat. To brew them, they harvest alchemy ingredients from roadside shrubs and from the corpses of monsters they kill. Each ingredient contains one of the following basic substances: ether, salem, fulgur, hydragenum, quebrith, rebus, soul, vermilion, or vitriol. Alchemy formulae describe the proportions of these substances which must be mixed to obtain the desired potion. To make a potion while meditating, the Witcher must both have the formula and the ingredients it requires. In addition to potions, witches can also prepare oils that they apply to blades to poison opponents or irritate their wounds, and bombs which can be cast to wound or kill many foes at once. Potions have a delayed effect, so they should be consumed before a fight while meditating. Oils can only be applied to sword blades in the inventory panel. Bombs should also be prepared in advance and placed in the pocket slots. The Witcher 2. The Duties and Goals of the Lodge. The actions of this secret organization, which united sorceresses from the northern kingdoms and Nilfgaard, were revealed relatively late. The 10-member lodge had been envisioned as a successor to the Conclave and the Supreme Council of Sorcerers. It was supposed to focus on the interests of magic and protect the world from the cataclysm that would result from the disappearance of the art. However, at the time this story was unfolding, not many knew the organization even existed, apart from the sorceresses belonging to it, of course. The Witcher 3, a portrayal of the elder races. What is a non-human? The answer is simple. As the very name suggests, it is something which resembles and yet nevertheless is not a human. Though it walks on two legs, speaks a tongue similar to our own, and dresses in similar attire, it all the same has more in common with base beast than noble man. Dwarves are like moles. They feel best underground and avoid direct sunlight. They like to live in filth, forever smudging themselves in mud and slime. They love everything that can be found within the earth, rocks, metal, minerals of all shape and color. It is also said that, like their kindred moles, they feed most readily on worms, roaches, and other night crawlers. Halflings, for their part, are more reminiscent of gophers, fat, lazy, and loud in that typical rodent way. Their minds are filled only with thoughts of food and drink, which they steal from other nobler beasts and greedily squirrel away in their hovels. They are marked by cruel craftiness. You could be dying of hunger and they would not share a meal with you. You could be howling from poverty and they could be swimming in gold, and yet they would still fleece you to the last crown. You could do nothing but good to them, and they would still stab a knife in your back. Elves, in turn, seem related to the birds of prey that dwell in far-off Zerrikania. They care most for colored feathers. They would most readily spend all day staring at their reflections in the water and singing their own praises. They are so awash in self-love that they no longer feel any desire toward members of the opposite sex of their own species. Their appearance, unquestionably pleasant to the eye, is highly misleading, for they are extraordinarily cruel, and any who judge them by their looks alone, they first dupe and then kill in cold blood. The best proof of this? The so-called Scoia'tael, bandits that claim to fight for freedom, but in truth only long to kill humans. All these vile so-called elder races, to our great fortune, are slowly dying out. Joy fills the heart of every right-thinking man at the thought that his great-grandchildren will never know them, that in their day, dwarves, halflings, and elves will merely be fairy tale characters used to scare young, impressionable children. The Witcher 3. Gnomish Prankings. Scrub the greasings from a dog's ear, soak into cotton twine, place in a new lamp of greenish hue, and set said lamp betwixt an eager crowd. Forsooth they shall swear that a dog's head they behold, and this shall be no sorcery but good betidings. For the Prince of Ellender's nuptials, a paltry gnome armed with a miniature cutlass behid himself in a pie. When guests partook of the princely banquet, anon jumped out the besabered gnome, giving a terrible fright to all at first, then causing much merriment once the jest was figured. A cynocephalus, or a dog's head in our tongue, a beast that in the waters of Zanzibar dwells, has the corpus of a man but the head of a dog. The Prince of Ellender did receive such a specimen from those far-off lands. The cynocephalus lets stream its urine with the toiling of every hour, both day and night, and this is why the Zangibarians engrave its likeness on timepieces and compasses. The Witcher 3. A Maverick of Serrano's Journal. When dealing with beings of this nature, it is most vital to achieve equilibrium between giving free rein to its will and obstructing it with the fetters of servitude. The sagacious elementalist who has tamed a magic minion should not heed the sweet yet pernicious urge to unbind the being, for only harm will come of it. Wailing and gnashing of teeth will be the only result. Likewise, he who tightens his servant's yoke overmuch will gain nothing from it, for his enchanted being will be to him dumb and dull as a lump of earth. The key is to prepare a proper magic barrier, one whose effectiveness shall be backed by a crystal of power. This crystal is of the utmost importance. If it should break, the barrier shall fail, yet worry not overmuch, for neither axe nor blade can harm it. A barrier thus secured shall serve as the minion's prison, without unduly hindering its power. The ability to erect it properly, however, demands a high level of proficiency, the kind no mere superficial study or practice can provide. The bunglers and ne'er-do-wells of our profession need not apply. Right. Sounds suitably pompous. Must have Ducasse make a clean copy of this first draft, prepare for publication. Wonder where that Claude is. I sent him out for cheese and ink ages ago. The Witcher 1. The Kingdom of Temeria. The Kingdom of Temeria by Alice Kim. Temeria, the jewel of the north, has silver lilies on a black background as its emblem. The kingdom, always powerful, has gained even more prominence in recent years under the wise rule of the good king Foltest. Redania lies to the north, across the Pontar River, while mountain ranges can be found to the south and east. One of them is Mahakam, a stronghold of dwarves and gnomes, past which the lands of Lyria and Edirn lie. The capital of Temeria is Vizima, located on the shores of Lake Vizima. Maribor is the realm's second largest city. The Witcher 2. The Valley of the Flowers. In the Elven tongue, Dol Blathana means the Valley of the Flowers. Anyone who sees this land with their own eyes would admit to the aptness of this poetic name. Once the southeasternmost province of the Kingdom of Edirn, it became the sole and sovereign realm of the Free Elves following the last war against Nilfgaard, when Emperor Emir von Emrys gave the elves these lands in return for their wartime service. Dol Blathana is ruled by the elven sorceress Francesca Finderbire, known also as Enid on Gliana, the Daisy of the Valley. It remains a thorn in the side of the neighboring realms, even though its queen has been forced to distance herself officially from the guerrilla war waged by the Scoia'tael. The Witcher 3, Elven Sages. Many think Ein Savern, meaning sage, is simply the elder speech term for sorcerer, yet to equate a sage with a common practitioner of magic is akin to considering a newly drafted private, hay sticking out of his breeches, a witcher's equal, simply because both wield swords. A sage wields magic, true, and does so with greater skill than even the most accomplished human mages. The great renown and regard in which they are held, however, comes not from this skill, but from the other truly rare abilities they possess. Nothing is a secret for an elven sage. They see both past and future as easily as the present. They have mastery over all the arcana of magic, as well as every domain of scholarship. They are the only ones who understand the nature and operation of the so-called elder blood and the gene of Loradoran, and they guard this knowledge jealously. How numerous are the elven sages? In all my life I have met only one, Ida Emian of the Blue Mountains. She might possibly be the last representative of this mysterious caste. It is true I have encountered mention of a male elf who also might belong to it, but as of this writing, I have been unable to confirm this. The Witcher 3, Heraldic Animals. Of all the heraldic beasts, lions and griffins are the most noble and pure. Let us speak first of griffins, for the creatures from which the armorialists draw inspiration combine elements of both eagles and lions, and thus contain within them both rulers of the animal kingdom. Griffins are brave hunters, and the most chivalrous of creatures known to man. Before they snap down from the heavens upon their prey like a divine whip, they let out a long, piercing shriek in warning, so that the victim may prepare itself for the imminent attack. Griffins do not fear to attack armed men. In fact, they prefer such prey, for defeating a knight flatters their pride. They even attack fiends, the terror of the Velen wilderness, so honorable is their nature. The Witcher 3, The Corpse of Novigrad. Alexander Ho walked down the long corridor, delighted that the sounds of debauchery pouring out from the rooms drowned out the sound of his footsteps. The long-neglected brothel floor creaked and moaned, as though the wood regretted being witness to the lecherous scenes fed to it by this house of ill repute, standing in the very center of the pride of the northern cities. Ho had been generously remunerated for this visit by the wife of a silk merchant. She had long suspected her husband of dabbling with loose women during his working hours. The case had seemed simple enough, banal even, a cheating husband. How many similar affairs had he unraveled? The worst was that his employers never truly wanted him to bring irrefutable proof of their husband's guilt. On the contrary, in their heart of hearts they always hoped his investigations would prove their husbands model citizens and their suspicions wholly unfounded. This time it truly did turn out that the woman's husband was no whoremonger, despite the fact that his trail led Alexander to a place in which fleshy pleasures were bought and sold. The door in front of which he stopped, following the instructions he had received from the gnome at the entrance, had a small plaque with the number 16 on it. Unlike the other rooms, this one was enveloped in an unsettling calm. Ho turned the doorknob and pushed the door open, and what he saw behind it far exceeded his worst expectations. The Witcher 1, Forensic Medicine. Forensic Medicine by Milo Vanderbeek. Before beginning an autopsy, we must gather as much information as possible to help us interpret any marks we discover on the body. It is good to know who the victim was and in what setting the corpse was found. Witnesses should be questioned and experts consulted. A well-conducted autopsy gives almost as much information as talking to the victim. We can learn when death occurred, its circumstances, and what happened to the body afterwards. We may also learn about the murderer, any objects used in the murder, and the manner of their use. A corpse cut with a scalpel is like an open book. Whoever examines the details and carefully tests every hypothesis will understand it. The Witcher 2, The Thaned Coup. The coup at Thaned Island was one of the most significant events in history. In that memorable day, during a sorcerer's summit, the magicians loyal to the northern kingdoms intended to arrest those of their brotherhood that conspired with Nilfgaard. The conspirators, on the other hand, prepared a coup against their confratres. They secretly let Scoia'tael and Nilfgaardian agents on Thaned. Many members of both factions died on the bloody battle that raged in the palace chambers, yet in the end the traitors had to flee for their lives. This event greatly reduced the mages' confidence, and many fell out of favor of the kings they served until then. The Witcher 2, The Grand Triple.
Great Melitelli is, among others, the patron of love, marriage, fertility, nature, and abundance. Her cult came to be through the blending of those beliefs many different races and cultures held about those aspects of life. Melitelli's popularity never waned, and the phenomenon is explained in various ways. I think the causes are prosaic myself. The cult of Melitelli is a predominantly woman cult, and the goddess is, among others, the protector of women in childbirth. A delivering woman has to scream, and apart from the usual yells and empty promises that she'll never give herself to another mangy man again, the woman has to call some deity for help, and Melitelli fits the bill perfectly. Because women were deliver, and will be delivering, the goddess Melitelli does not have to worry about a lowering of the number of worshippers. The Witcher 2, the Nilfgaardian Provinces. The Empire of Nilfgaard is the largest state in the known world, its rule extending over more than a dozen provinces. It has conquered all the realms south of the Amel Mountains and united them under one crown. Black imperial standards adorned with the golden sun flutter over buildings and outposts from the Yaruga River in the north to Vico Varo in the south and the mountain massif of Tir Toker in the east. The Empire's mighty armies lie in wait, ready to bring death at their ruler's command or to die eagerly in his name. The Black One's continued march northward was last stopped several years ago, through the united effort of the northern kingdoms and the sacrifice of much blood at Brenna. Yet peering across the Yaruga on a bright day, one can still see their dark cloaks and the sun glancing off the points of their lances.
The Witcher 3, Moribundia, the vampire's last likeness. Thereupon Isabella took Edward's glistening visage in her hand and embraced his icy lips, which were twisted into a cynical grin. "Forgive me, my love," she whispered, stifling the sobs heaving her bosom. "But my heart doth long with fierce a passion for yon werewolf, whom thou hatest with all thy vampiric thowness." "'Tis for the best," spoke Edward, shifting his pale face toward the equally pale moon. "With me thy life was ever endangered. With yon werewolf thou shalt know peace and happiness." Edward turned round and took a step towards the exit, but Isabella grabbed his wrist and bade he stop. The touch of her hand was so tender, his heart began to beat anew after centuries of deathly stillness. "There is more," spoke she, averting his penetrating gaze. "I am with child."
The Witcher 3, the little peasant who confounded his lord. Winter was on its way, and the lord once again started to think about what to do to oppress his people even more. One morning, at the crack of the cockerel's crow, he rode out into the village in a carriage pulled by 2 black horses, with his trusted page at his side to act as his scribe. The earth was sodden, and a cruel mud covered the road, so the lord, not wanting to dirty his shiny new boots, stayed in his carriage and sent his page to do his bidding. When they arrived at the village, the page dismounted from the carriage, a paper covered in thick ink clutched in his hands. He nailed the paper to the first hut he saw, and since he did it with a hammer, a peasant boy named Reuben soon opened the door up to see what was the matter. The boy was 12 years of age and had a straw-colored shock of cow-licked hair and a freckled face with ruddy cheeks. "Well, what do you want?" grumbled the page, looking at Reuben's shirt, which was covered in the same filth as everything else in the village.
"Well, nothing rightly," Reuben shrugged. "Thing is, sir, this here's me home."
"Then get inside it." The boy wasn't scared, and instead stood on his doorstep looking at the piece of paper.
"So what's this, sir? A letter?" the boy asked.
"Read it and find out for yourself," the scribe said, growing angrier, though Reuben didn't seem to notice.
"Afeard I can't, sir. Don't know how."
"What the devil's taking you, scribe?" the lord hollered. He was still sitting in his carriage and hadn't heard the conversation. Clearly he was growing bored. "The whelp says he doesn't know how to read."
"Aye, 'cause he don't,"
Reuben confirmed and took 2 steps toward the carriage, his bare feet sinking into the muddy grey muck. "And the ones inside, do they?" questioned the lord.
"Where do you reckon they'd learn a thing like that, my lord?"
the peasant asked, perplexed, for he had always thought great lords like that must surely know everything. "So who in your village does know how to read?" asked the lord, growing ever more irritated.
"Not no one, my lord."
"Scribe," the lord said, leaning far out while leaning on his carriage door, "could you explain to me how I am to enforce my declaration on people who do not know how to read and write?" I don't know, my lord," the scribe said, taking a step back, as if he expected the lord to jump out of the carriage and assault him. The fault was not his, but the lord was in the habit of beating his scribe when he grew angry, no matter the cause.
The Witcher 3, Heroes of Skellige, Otkul. Legend states that when Otkell, son of Hemdall, was sailing to Hindisfjall, a terrible storm broke. Otkell called for his father's help, but his father could not hear, for powerful thunder drowned out Otkell's voice. In despair, Otkell began yelling for anyone who heard his cries to come to his aid. In reply, Freya descended and gave Otkell a set of pipes. When the hero blew on them, the waves calmed, the storm passed, and Otkell could safely reach the shore. When Hemdall learned of the help the goddess had given Otkell, he ordered him to raise a temple to her on the isle. Ever since that day, Skelligers have worshipped Freya, and the women of Otkell's line have often chosen to become her priestesses.
The Witcher 3, Holy Tome of the Eternal Fire. The fire protects. Whosoever shall in its light stand, him no evil shall ever harm. The fire cleanses. Like a wound puffed up with dirt and pus, so too must a soul inflamed with sin and vile deeds be burnt clean. The fire cannot be contained. Whosoever shall lie in its path shall be burnt. Whosoever shall raise a hand against it, he shall be reduced to ashes. The fire illuminates the darkness. The evil that in shadows lurks will be revealed in the fire's harsh light and perish in its smouldering embers. Whosoever shall seek to hide his guilt and lecherous works in darkness shall stand naked before the devouring flames. Let us pray, brothers and sisters. The fire enlightens, burns, and cleanses. The fire protects, warms, and lights the path. The fire exposes, incinerates, and destroys evil.